Remember, this is not giving Kamala Harris her first 4 years in the White House. This is a question of, does she deserve 4 more years? She has got to be held account for the fact that she is in the White House right now, has been the vice president for 3.5 years, and the economy is in shambles. Inflation is still through the roof. Our border is basically non-existent. Kamala Harris would do even more damage to the economy if she somehow manages to get into the White House. Raise taxes by $5 trillion. Let the Donald Trump tax cuts of 2017 expire, which means a tax increase on every single person in this country who pays taxes. Talking about the Donald Trump economic plan, his record, the Donald Trump tax cuts, he would make them permanent. He would also declare no taxes on tips for service workers, no taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security. It's going to be a focus on the economic problems of this country and economic solutions. Trump has them, Kamala Harris does not.
All right, guys, another big week. It just doesn't stop, does it? Tonight is debate night. Monday's always like Monday Night Football. Well, tonight, Tuesday night, it is debate night. It's going to be everywhere, and it's going to be here. If you don't watch it with me, I'll look at your comments on YouTube. We are going to go live to watch it, so you can sit and watch it with us. I will read your comments. I'll share my ideas, and then when it's done, we'll do a little bit of analysis. So you might as well hang out with us. So sit back. What's this? So, like, by the time the show is done, you can grab a little something to eat. You got 2 hours, and then go. So we're within a couple hours of the big debate. Let's do this together. You know what I'm saying? Tim Murtaugh, senior advisor to the Trump campaign, is going to join us in just a few minutes. And we're going to go through everything that they expect, what their logistics. And again, the thing that's interesting about this show, you saw it with James Blair, is we're going to cover it, not just the issues and how they're going to prosecute the case against Tim Walz, but I think I want to talk a little bit about the logistics. I want to know, what are they going to do tonight? What are they doing to counter? What is Trump going to do? Because Trump's been talking about he's going to live truth this thing. So a lot to do. By the way, just as a reminder, tomorrow, Chicks on the Right will be here, and then we will have, as I've said, Road to 270. We'll do a little post-debate analysis with them. Road to 270 with them. It follows that piece, and we'll go through a truncated version of it to get a quick update based on the latest polls, where we are. And every Wednesday going forward, we're going to do Road to 270. We don't have that many Wednesdays left, do we? So you can bookmark it now. Every Wednesday, we're doing Road to 270. There's a lot of polls that are going to be coming out. The states are shifting, new data on early vote. We'll incorporate all that kind of stuff into it, tell you where things stand going forward. Okay. Then Friday, by the way, RNC Chair Mike Whatley is going to be here. So a big week coming your way. I want to get into a couple other things. But before I do that, I want to tell you about Beam and its Dream Powder, because I get wound up. You can tell, right? I get so excited after the show about what's going on, reading everything, and then getting ready for the next day. I often have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. I take it for the last couple months, have been taking Beam's Dream Powder. This is my new installment of it. I love the cinnamon cocoa flavor. There is a brownie flavor. I'm telling you, if this stuff tasted, I mean, I would drink it all day long. It is that good. And the cool thing is, if you've taken magnesium or melatonin like I have, it's got reishi and apigenin, all of this stuff kind of put together in one thing. I take a scoop of it, and it's a little scoop. I put it in a little bit of water, I put it in the microwave, stir it up 30 seconds, and then I take it down. It was funny. Last night I was going to pick my son up. My daughter looks at me and she goes, "Are you sure you're ready to take the Beam yet?" Because half hour. And I waited till I got back for that exact reason. You need 30 seconds, 30 minutes, and you're ready to go to sleep, and you stay asleep. So if you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, like a bunch of athletes and professionals do, you can get up to 40% off your first order when you go to shopbeam.com/Spicer. Shopbeam.com/Spicer and use code Spicer at checkout. That could save you up to 40% off your first order. I'm telling you, you will not have a problem sleeping again. Try this. All right. As I said, debate nights tonight. Tim Murtaugh coming up in just a second. We've been talking a lot about different groups that they are outreaching to, right? So they've done a great job, I think, reaching out to young men in particular through these podcasts. I'm going to ask Tim Murtaugh about that in just a second. We hear a lot about the gender gap, the education gap, all these other things. And it's interesting, though, there's a gap that kind of exists but doesn't really get talked about, the gap with Catholics, which I find surprising, but that's a whole nother story, because if you are truly following Catholic doctrine, I don't see how this is a big choice. And, look, I'm not your priest. I'm not a bishop or cardinal or the Pope. Pope's made his views known. But if you care about life, how's that? Then I think I know who the only person is that actually has fought for life. And the other two people who are openly saying that they support abortion and the killing of babies. Trump has made some interesting tweets, though. He tweeted the prayer to St. Michael the other day and just put all the words down. St. Michael the Archangel, defensive battle. I mean, it was interesting. No comments, just put the St. Michael prayer out there, which is a very interesting prayer to put out. And then put out another tweet, Happy Birthday, Mary. Now, there was no context. It wasn't like, hey, wanted to, it wasn't like some random birthday message. He just said, Happy Birthday, Mary, and put the Blessed Mother out there. Interesting. I mean, I've known the guy a long time. He's not Catholic. Although there's a funny, interesting story I'll tell you at some other point about after the campaign. We're up at Bedminster. I'll tell it to you for a second. But they were all going down to church. Mike Pence was leading the way, and the president asked me to join him. And I said, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I can't join you. I'm going to mass. And he said, oh, no, we're all going to church. It was Pence, a former Catholic, that had to intervene and say, Mr. President, it's a little different. He has to go to mass to fulfill his obligation. And but the president, it was very kind of him to offer. And it was just a very touching moment up there at Bedminster after the 2016 election. And thank goodness for Mike Pence coming in and intervening as the former Catholic to explain why I couldn't join them and, in fact, had to go to mass. But I digress. But it's an interesting outreach effort that he's doing, isn't it? I mean, you might as well. But I also think that I got to believe, and I talked to him a little bit about this, but not the religious piece. After you get shot twice, he's commented about God looking after him. And I'm hoping that a guy who didn't really talk about religion, maybe this is the moment where he has had some of those personal discussions with God. And look, I've said this all along. I just want to be clear. Like, it's not for me to talk about somebody else's religion or to their relationship with God. That's them. That's their decision. I can hope that they have one. I can pray for them and say, I hope you have a relationship with God, and I hope it gets deeper and grows. And I hope that's the case. I don't need him to tell me or anyone else about that. That's between them and God. And I hope that through these last few months, these instances where clearly the hand of God came down and protected him for some reason, that has brought him closer. And maybe this is what's inspiring these tweets and these images. I can only hope. Anyway, I digress, but I think this is important, and I hope so. But tonight is about J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. A lot of interesting tactics going on, because I would feel compelled to go after Tim Walz. I mean, this guy just got out yesterday lying about being in Tiananmen Square. Well, no, he's very proud about how often he goes to China. But there's now photographic evidence of him being in the United States. Like, he lies about everything. And if you're J.D. Vance, you got to figure out, where's that line? How often do I go after him? How do I expose his stolen valor? Lying about awards, lying about being in Tiananmen Square, lying about traveling to China, lying about this family's situation with IVF. He lies over and over again, despite the narrative against Trump. Anyway, but this debate is really about undermining the top of the ticket. He's got to prosecute that case against Kamala Harris. So that's enough about what I think. I want to bring in Tim Murtaugh, senior advisor to the Trump campaign, from West Palm, talk about what their plans are, how they're going to do this. Before I do that, I want to tell you about our friends at Tax Network, because, friends, I'm telling you, the Democrats used this process a couple of years ago to add a ton of money to the IRS, hire 50,000 agents, and they're sending these payout notices. They're going after people, and because of COVID in particular, I think they are trying to look for people who owed money for some reason, personal, business, 5,000, 50,000, 500,000, 5 million. It doesn't matter, because they've got the resources of the federal government behind them. And when you do that, it's not like you're looking to go, does this make sense? It's just, hey, let's go after this guy. Let's try to get the 10,000 out of him. But I'm telling you, when the IRS comes after you, you don't want to go at this alone. You need professional help. And I have always believed the best in the business are the folks at Tax Network. If you go to tnusa.com/Sean Spicer, full name there, TNUSA, taxnetworkusa.com/Sean Spicer. You need their help. They've recovered over $1 billion for their clients. That's all you need to know. They've got the expertise and the professionalism to be your advocates when you go up against the IRS. And you know that they've done their job because of how much they've recovered. Do not go it alone. Do not go it alone. Do not go it alone. Call my friends, 1-800-245-6000. Or more importantly, go to tnusa.com/Sean Spicer and get the help from the folks at Tax Network if the IRS contacts you. All right. Without further ado, live from West Palm Beach, Florida, the Trump headquarters, senior advisor Tim Murtaugh. Tim Murtaugh, welcome back. Great to see you.
Good to see you, Sean. Thanks for having me on once again. I will try to turn in a good effort here. We were just talking before
you know, I'm just telling you, James Blair raises that bar. I'm just telling you, but you know, you've all right. So let's just start tonight. Let's lay the land. What do you want to see tonight? What do you expect? What should we be watching for?
First of all, I want to address this thing that Tim Walz has done. The Harris campaign has put out. I think they floated it to CNN because CNN would actually swallow it and report it like it was fact. This idea that Tim Walz is nervous about the debate tonight and, he's got an attack of the nerves and he's hiding in his hotel room. Give me a break. This is a guy who ran for Congress and won 6 times. Ran for governor twice in Minnesota and was reelected governor. He has been through 8 elections. He's done plenty of debates. He's not nervous. He's going to come out there and do just fine. We're not going to see Governor Jazz Hands that we've seen mincing around the campaign trail and flouncing all over the place. We're going to see a guy who is sure, he's going to be Minnesota folksy and he's going to try to come off as a nice guy from Minnesota, but he's going to be buttoned up. He's going to be there doing business. He's going to be good on the debate stage because he has done this a mess of times. He's going to be just fine. What is a problem for him is that he's got to be out there defending Kamala Harris, defending her record of being a San Francisco liberal, defending the fact that she's trying to hide everything from everybody that's in her record and hiding from everybody what is truly in her agenda. And J.D. Vance is going to turn it always back to Kamala Harris, tie Tim Walz to Kamala Harris, her failed record, her agenda for more failure, the fact that she supercharged inflation by her 2 tie-breaking votes in the Senate for all this government spending that even Janet Yellen says contributed to inflation mightily. That is what we expect to see tonight. And J.D. Vance is going to be great. He's going to be on his game. He's the best promoter and defender of the Trump agenda outside of Donald Trump that we've got. And so we expect a pretty good show. Tim Walz is going to come with his A game. J.D. Vance is going to come with his A game. We think in the battle of ideas and the battle of records, that's where we win.
All right, so I agree with you. Like I mean, to me, it's about the top of the ticket, right? So sure. Let's get him to expose Kamala Harris's flip-flops. But I got to be honest with you, it's so tempting to me, and maybe it's because I'm Irish and I'm petty. But I got to be like, dude, you lie so much. I mean, for as much crap as Donald Trump takes from the national media, Tim Walz just yesterday, and I know most of the mainstream media or the legacy, I keep catching myself. It's not mainstream. It's state media refused to report on this. Yesterday, Tim Walz was caught again. He had lied about being in Tiananmen Square, and it was found out that he was like hanging out in Minnesota, and there's photographs. Right. First of all, can I just say this? I'm sorry. This is, again, the petty Irish part of me. How do you forget that you weren't in Tiananmen Square? You're like, you know what? On second thought, it was a strip mall outside of Minnesota. It was in Edina, Minnesota. I get it confused with Tiananmen Square all the time. Yeah. How do you do that? He literally said, I was in Tiananmen Square when it happened. Yeah. And it finds out that the guy was literally like hanging out in a strip mall outside of a CVS in Edina. I'm not kidding, but I'm serious that and no one picks up on it. He lied about this. He lied about his military record. He lied about awards that he's gotten from a Chamber of Commerce. Over and over again, this guy has a pattern of lying. How do you resist tonight? I'd be like, no, you're a liar, you're a liar, you're a liar. I get he needs to go after Kamala, but it's got to be tempting to want to just be like, I'm sorry, you're a liar.
Yeah, well, look, I think there's going to be some of that. It's a 90-minute debate, and so there'll be plenty of time to talk about Tim Walz's record and what a failure he's been. I heard somebody, I saw it on X the other day, somebody called him Gavin Newsom in a flannel shirt.
It was Emmer. Tom Emmer.
Was it Tom Emmer who said that? I think what a great line. That's just a fantastic line.
There's this combination. Emmer called him Gavin Newsom with a flannel shirt, and then I heard another Republican call him Gavin Newsom without the good hair.
Yeah. Well, that part's true too. Yeah, but look, he didn't forget that he was not in Tiananmen Square, but he even made up a detail. He said that he remembered being in the train station when they were traveling, on the day of the massacre in Tiananmen Square. He's making up details for ghosts in his memory there. But he didn't forget. This is a guy he's a fabulist. He makes up stuff. And then at the same time that he's imagining being in Tiananmen Square, when in fact he wasn't, his campaign was out there telling Michigan Public Radio that all these trips to China that he said he's taken, he's bragged many times that he's been to China 30 times, right? He's on the record saying that many times. 30 trips to China, going back to when he was a high school teacher, right? His campaign says, you know what, we're going to need to roll that back a little bit. It wasn't 30. It was really more like 15. I mean, what difference does that make? Why would you even bother? They're trying to roll it back, but only just a little bit. Actually, he's only been to communist China. He's obsessed with it, sure, but only to the tune of 15 trips, not 30 trips. Honestly, why would you even bother making that correction? What possible difference does that make? And one other thing that I think I mentioned this once before on your show, Sean. The other thing that he exaggerates a lot in his role as a fabulist on this ticket is his high school football coaching career, where he goes to people and he says, hey, I coached my team to the state championships back in Minnesota. We had a team that was 0-27 in the previous 3 years or whatever he says. And I coached them all the way to the state title. We turned that program around. You try that, go to a high school game and talk to people on a Friday night in Pennsylvania or Texas or Florida or anywhere where high school football is king. And you tell them that story. Those people are going to walk away thinking, wow, that guy was the head football coach of his high school team. That's pretty cool. And then when you find out, no, he was an unpaid volunteer assistant coach on that high school football team, then they're going to say, wow, that guy tried to get something past me. And you'll find out this guy lies about everything, even his high school football coaching career.
I think JD should call him that tonight. Be like, listen, assistant coach Walz.
Assistant volunteer unpaid.
Assistant coach Walz. But so here's the thing. I agree with your assessment, right? This is a guy, I mean, first of all, he lies about everything. So the idea that he's nervous, I get why he's nervous. I mean, first of all, I actually think that's true. If you lied about everything that he's lied about, wouldn't you be a little nervous standing up there for 90 minutes and being like, oh crap?
No, I don't think so. If you're a guy who lies habitually, you're not worried about getting into any tough situation because you don't care what you'll say. That's
all right, whatever. He's been in Congress a ton. I'm sure he debated then. He did floor speeches and he was on a committee and he was governor twice. So I agree with you. I mean, the guy's been around the block. He's acting like, oh shucks, I just fell off the turnip truck. And like, here's a guy who knows how to debate. Full stop. We all get it. He's trying to lower expectations. But at the same time, I saw President Trump talking to someone at Fox saying, look, I don't know why Kamala picked him. He's a moron. Where do you guys want the bar set?
Well, look, two things can be true at the same time. Right. The guy that we see on the campaign trail, I think, is the one that Donald Trump is describing, where he's flouncing around and he's always, sky pointing. And I don't know if you saw him at the football game. He went to the Minnesota-Michigan game, and he's the governor of Minnesota at this moment, and he's there sucking up to the Michigan fans. I mean, that's unbelievable. He practically got booed out of the stadium. But
do you see he gave a finger? He gave the middle finger.
Flipping off the Michigan fans, which is, and then he talks about, gosh, it was like a religious experience. And do you often flip off people when you go to church?
That's not Minnesota nice.
That is not Minnesota nice. But also when he saw the Golden Gopher mascot, it was like a kid who probably gets a scholarship for wearing the mascot. He acted like he had seen Elvis, and like my 6 and 7 year old children would, how they react to Chuck E. Cheese when he comes out of the back of the restaurant,
Oh, don't get me started on Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah. So, there are two Tim Walzes, and we're going to see one of them tonight. We've seen the other one on the campaign trail as the guy who flounces around and practically is doing jazz hands all over the place. And I think that's the guy that Donald Trump was talking about. Yeah. But he's going to be able to turn it on the debate stage, and that's what J.D. Vance is preparing for. So it's just like Kamala Harris. There's two faces of this guy. There's the Kamala Harris who comes out there and says, I was a prosecutor. And then there's the actual prosecutor, Kamala Harris, where she's going soft on criminals the whole time she was DA out in San Francisco. So it's one thing when he's out there trying to, be the cool guy, and another thing when he's out there on the debate stage. That's what we're going to see.
All right. So let me just, let me ask this way. Does tonight matter? I mean, barring some screw up, do you think that people are going to look like, do you think that tomorrow or the day after that the needle moves at all because of tonight?
Look, I think the needle is gradually moving in our direction every single day. What is going to be discussed, this is going to be 90 minutes of network airtime for JD Vance to put the screws to the Harris Walz ticket and talk about what a failure they have been and what a failure they will be if given 4 more years. Remember, this is not giving Kamala Harris her first 4 years in the White House. This is a question of, does she deserve 4 more years? She has got to be held account for the fact that she is in the White House right now, has been the vice president for 3.5 years, and the economy is in shambles. Inflation is still through the roof. Our border is basically non-existent, and the world at large is on fire, and Americans are involved in various military conflicts around the world, both directly and indirectly. That is the America. And so we're going to spend 90 minutes talking about her record and how Kamala Harris would do even more damage to the economy if she somehow manages to get into the White House. Raise taxes by $5 trillion. Let the Donald Trump tax cuts of 2017 expire, which means a tax increase on every single person in this country who pays taxes. Talking about the Donald Trump economic plan, his record, the Donald Trump tax cuts, he would make them permanent. He would also declare no taxes on tips for service workers, no taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security. It's going to be a focus on the economic problems of this country and economic solutions. Trump has them. Kamala Harris does not. Every day, every minute that we spend talking about either the economy or the terrible situation at the border is 1 minute closer to victory for Donald Trump and JD Vance. That's what we're going to get 90 minutes of tonight. We're going to be 90 minutes closer to winning.
I got to be honest. I'm so excited for tonight. I really am. I asked that question about the importance of tonight, but I've known JD since just before he got elected. And he's so good. He's so genuine. Really he's so authentic. Yep. And to your point, he's authentic. And I think that to your point about Tim Walz, he's not, and he's full of crap. And I think that tonight, I don't want to be part of the raising the bar game, but I really do think that just on its face, JD's going to destroy him, mostly because of what you just said. He's got the policies. He can say, oh, really? Donald Trump said that. Your candidate flip-flopped on that. Your candidate, I mean, like, he's got so much ammo going. I want to talk to you, though, about the logistics, right? A lot of times campaigns set up war rooms. They're doing live fact checking. The moderator said that they're going to leave it up to the candidates, quote unquote, to do. Donald Trump said on Truth Social yesterday, he's going to do a personal play-by-play. So walk us through what tonight looks like for you guys. Like, who's going to be in the spin room? Who's going to be at Mar-a-Lago? What do you guys got going on?
Well, JD Vance, first of all, himself, he's going to follow Donald Trump's lead after the first debate. JD Vance is going to make an appearance in the spin room post-debate. That was in Playbook this morning. And
you could have saved it for us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know where they got a hold of it, but it was in Playbook this morning, and it happens to be true. One of the things that was in Playbook today that was true. And so...
Wait, can I just ask real quick? All that being said, before we continue with this, do you think Tim Walz, this was a checkmate thing. Do you think that Tim Walz now shows up or no?
I don't know if he does or not. I mean, he would certainly find a willing press corps who sees the world his way. I don't know why there shouldn't ever be a time where a Democrat is afraid to go into the spin room.
But just for fun.
It's like an extension of the campaign staff, basically.
All right, I don't think he shows up. I honestly think
I doubt it.
Okay, yeah. All right. So I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I just thought, now since you let in with that, the JD's going to show up. So what else do you guys have going on?
There was a very limited number of credentials that each campaign was allowed to have, and so the number, it's not going to be as kind of wide open in the spin room as it was for the presidential debate. But I think we got a total of 10 credentials. There's going to be a lot of elected officials in there, that names that you'll recognize, of course, members of Congress who are going to be in there with JD and supporting him in the spin room. And then here on the outside, on the war room, I'll be down here in West Palm Beach, and we'll have all of our surrogates out on TV, and we'll be managing the rapid response and the war room teams here, who will be doing live fact checking and making sure that everybody understands the policies that are behind the different things that JD Vance is going to talk about, as far as the Trump tax cuts and the Trump economic plan, and the Trump plan to secure the border, and the Trump record on all of those things. And then conversely, the other side of the coin is going to be all of the documentation of everything that we're saying about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, how they're going to raise taxes, how they've already contributed and super supercharged inflation, how she's been in the White House 3.5 years and her main responsibility of securing the southern border. She's become the leader in the first ever administration that actively sought to unsecure our southern border, and they have accomplished that. Of course, they got that right, and all they had to do was undo all the things that Donald Trump had done to secure it. And so all those things will be firing out on social media and through email blasts and all that sort of stuff. And it's all going to be run and quarterbacked from here at the headquarters in West Palm Beach. And of course, as you mentioned, Donald Trump himself says he's going to be live truthing the event. And that'll certainly be something to follow along with as well. I'm sure he will inject his own special brand of humor into a lot of that stuff, too.
Is there somebody who is going to, like, obviously, it's him, but do you guys have like a Trump handler that's going to be with him?
Have you ever met anybody who handles Donald Trump?
No. But yes. Okay. So how about this? A person that's going to be with him to do that is like a Dan Scavino or somebody going to be with him?
Oh, he'll have people around him. I don't know exactly where his whereabouts are going to be, but he'll be at the controls of his own Truth Social account. I can tell you that.
All right, so the Media Research Center, let me tell you what they put out. It says, like ABC's absurdly slanted presidential debate against Donald Trump, J.D. Vance needs to brace for a 3-on-1 ambush from CBS. Media Research Center latest study sets the stage. During the 2 months from July 21st to September 27th, MRC Newsbuster analyst examined all 346 minutes of campaign coverage on CBS Evening News and CBS Weekend News. Unsurprisingly, we discovered that coverage of Kamala Harris has been 84% positive, while Donald Trump's has been lopsidedly 79% negative. Although the junior partners received less airtime, the bias tilt was nearly identical. 89% positive coverage for Tim Walz and 89% coverage negative for J.D. Vance. All in, all coverage of the Democratic tickets on CBS Evening News newscast was 85% positive versus 81% negative for the Democrats. Now, neither Nora O'Donnell nor Margaret Brennan, the two female moderators, Nora being the CBS Evening News and Margaret Brennan being the host of Face the Nation, are exactly friendly to Republicans. In fact, very, very quite the opposite. Nora O'Donnell has a history of attacking Donald Trump. Margaret Brennan, no friend to Republicans or Donald Trump. How concerned are you about how CBS is going to handle this?
Well, look, this is just the lay of the land, isn't it? It's life being the Republican nominee, and it doesn't really matter what cycle, what election. They hate Republicans, and if Donald Trump is involved, boy, that ratchets up even higher. And J.D. Vance is on that level with Donald Trump as far as media hatred of him goes. And you know what you're getting into. You know when you go into it, of course. And they say that they're not going to do the lopsided fact checking that ABC did during the presidential race, where they live fact checked Donald Trump at least 5 times and live fact checked Kamala Harris approximately 0 times during the course of that debate. And so they say they're not going to do that tonight, and we'll see if
well, they announced they're going to put a QR code
on the streaming, but that is of course that assumes that the two moderators will be able to restrain themselves from jumping in and stopping, because it's not just fact checking. They don't like our way that we present stories. They don't like the way we present facts and like talking about how this is actually how it is affecting the people back. So when they break in for a fact check, very often it's just a difference of opinion on whatever the facts of the thing
exactly.
might be.
Dude,
that's not a fact check. That's editorializing. And that's what
I have a passage in my first book where I wrote this thing where Mike Pence made some comment about the number of jobs created under Trump or something, right? And he got, quote, fact checked, and they said, while technically true, the percentage of jobs vis-a-vis and it's like, wait a second, so it's true, but you don't like, they said he should have added more context. It's like, if I go to lunch and I say I had a really good meal, and I don't put it in context that said, I've had 5,000 meals and this was number 4, then that doesn't mean that my statement is true. I mean, these guys go to no ends to, quote, fact check, which is not fact check. Fact checking is lying or not being accurate. And these guys are saying, well, we don't like the context in which you said it in.
Do you know Stephanie Ruhle of MSNBC, who, of course, did Kamala Harris's sit-down interview last week, I guess it was.
I thought that was a staff meeting.
Yeah, right. She had already publicly endorsed Kamala Harris on television, and then she goes and does a sit-down interview with her. The other day, J.D. Vance was remarking about how much his children eat and how much it costs to feed his kids. And he made some offhand remark about, my 2 sons, they eat 14 eggs every morning, right? Which is obviously hyperbole. Like if I say, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse, do I mean I'm going to literally eat a horse? No, it just means I'm super hungry. Never in one sitting, not to this point yet anyway. But so Stephanie Ruhle actually fact-checked him on Twitter. She put up on X, she put up a post that says, 14 eggs a day times 7 days a week, that's 98 eggs, blah, 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 blah. So, what is hyperbole? How does hyperbole work, Stephanie? They're fact-checking. Well, that's jokes,
like when she says, I'm a journalist, that's hyperbole.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
come on. Yes, that's right. If her calling herself a journalist would be.
Or that
hyperbole.
MSNBC is a media outlet.
That's unbelievable. Fact-checking him on how it's not, first of all, maybe his kids do eat 98 eggs, but that's not the point. He was trying to make a point in the extreme. Right. That's how hyperbole works. And she was like, right past her.
No, I think that they just can't help themselves. So there is a lot of speculation. Trump made a comment about let's put it this way. He left the door open on a potential other debate. How does that play out? Is the door closed? Is it possible that after tonight he says, fine, I'm in, but it can't be on NBC. It has to be somewhere else? Or where do you see this thing moving in terms of a potential additional debate?
Kamala Harris already passed on other debates that had been scheduled. The Fox News debate that would have been one turned into a Trump solo town hall that I think was aired across 2 nights on Fox during Sean Hannity's hour. But as the president has said, the first thing that happens after a prize fighter loses a fight is that, while he's laying there on the mat bleeding in the middle of the ring, he says, I want a rematch. And that's exactly what Kamala Harris is doing. We see the public polling. We see that even the New York Times and others like that showed Donald Trump with a slim lead nationally. And as well as anybody, Sean, if you've had a lead in the national polls and you're a Republican, even 1 point, that national poll includes places like California and New York. And so if you're ahead nationally by a point with all that factored in, you must absolutely be destroying it in the battleground states that are going to actually decide this election. And then when we see the battleground state polling come out, we saw just this week 6 consecutive polls come out of Pennsylvania that showed Donald Trump with a clear lead. 6 consecutive polls in Pennsylvania. And I think everyone pretty much agrees that Pennsylvania is the name of the game, and it's going to come down to probably that. All the battlegrounds are important, and we're talking about Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin and Arizona and Nevada and Georgia and North Carolina. All of those states are very, very important as the battleground states. That's where it's going to be won. Donald Trump in this battleground state polling, it doesn't matter who the pollster is really, Donald Trump is in command and is leading in these states. And let me tell you, as you know, this was not where he was at this point in the race in 2016 or 2020. To actually have leads nationally and in this 7 battleground state map, the condensed map that we're all dealing with here, it's unbelievable. So Donald Trump has never been in a position this strong in any of his 3 races as he is right now today. So no wonder Kamala Harris wants an additional debate or 2 if she can get him. But she didn't connect. All the pundit class thinks, she did so great in the first debate. That is not true, Sean. Absolutely not true. We're seeing it. If that were true, it would be she who would be opening up the lead in all these battleground states, not Donald Trump. He is beginning to pull ahead. And as I say, every minute that we talk about the economy or the border or taxes or the border, every minute we spend talking about those things is a minute closer to victory. Where did Kamala Harris go late last week? She had to go to the border because that's where she is getting crushed. Everyone knows that the border is her fault. That's why I don't know why she made that decision, stupidly trying to go down there and shore up the problem that she's got.
Well, don't you think it's because of that? But that's I mean, look, they get it. The 2 issues, Trump leads on the issues. Number 1, the economy. Number 2, on immigration and all the subsets that come out of those issues. So like inflation, et cetera, crime. But in 8 of the top 10 Gallup issues, Trump leads. She's trying to plug holes. But that's the thing that I think, Tim, you know as well as I do, and I'm not going to put you in a bad spot. Every single person that I come to, I was at my high school reunion. this weekend. So many Trump supporters saying, and we've all heard this. Can't you just get him to do X, Y, and Z? People trust Donald Trump on the issues. It's the personal attacks where I think sometimes people say, could you just say to him, stay on the issues?
Well, I mean, I would invite those people to compare records and ask them how many times they've been elected president. I feel like Donald Trump has got a handle on how it is that he likes to run his campaigns. And I don't think you're going to find anyone who has ever had any success trying to get Donald Trump to see things a different way. He is Donald Trump. And he's been this way for quite some time, and it has worked for him. It has been successful. Yeah. I don't know if anybody's paying attention. He is winning this current race. He is winning. If the election were
listen, I'm with you. I get asked all the time, and I say, at the end of the day, I give advice for a living, and when it comes to politics, and I said, and I tried that in 2016. Trump would do it his way. He'd advance the ball forward and look at me and said, okay, next time, remember that you told me not to do that. And I'd be like, okay, you were right. And that happened to...
And a lot of these things, it happens. A lot of these things, it's not like some accident that he says some of the things that he says. It's by design. And then because he says it, you spark the conversation.
Right.
Whatever the underlying issue is that he really wanted to talk about, a lot of times it's immigration, illegal aliens and such. He sparks the conversation, and then Kamala Harris is stuck talking about immigration again when she doesn't want to. And that's the beauty.
He can change a narrative or inject a subject in like I've ever seen before, which kind of leads me to my next. Look, I think you guys have crushed it when it comes to outreaching to new audiences. These podcasts, I think that he has killed it. Right? He's going out. He's talking to the Nelk boys, to Theo Vaughn. And it shows the gender gap's massive. Young men in particular are coming over to Donald Trump in a way that have never been affiliated with any Republican candidate, because I think he outreaches to them. He's talking about key issues to them. Let me kind of throw out what I think is the other issue, though. Obviously, he's done very well with men. Obviously, there's a gender gap. We see it in the polls. I have been watching this issue with big food is like my friend Alex Clark and Robert Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy call it, right? There's a video that Bobby Kennedy did the other day where he held up 2 bags of cereals and said, this is what, I think it's like Fruit Loops or something, and says, this is what it looks like in Europe. This is what it looks like in the United States. And he shows how many more chemicals and additives and processed foods are allowed in our food, not his. But at the end of the video, and he goes through this thing about big food and how we're getting poisoned in America and our government's allowing it to do it. He ends this video by saying, do you realize only 13 chemicals have been banned in recent years, and they were all banned under Donald Trump? I believe that Donald Trump's record on protecting kids and families from big food is a sleeper issue that could resonate with women and moms throughout this country, especially suburban ones in key areas. I'm just telling you, that's my free advice. I really do believe that this issue about what's going on is starting to percolate below the radar, but is a huge winner because so many parents are concerned about what's going into their kids' food, their own food, but obviously their kids as well.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about that, Sean, and I'm glad you've tapped into that. And this is the whole thing that RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard has been involved in a lot of the surrogates. Yep. The two of them have just been fantastic. Really the Wonder Twins of Democrats turned Trump surrogates.
Unsung heroes. Those are. I'm telling you, those are your unsung heroes, man.
And it's been what RFK's been talking about has been branded under the MAHA, I guess is how you would pronounce it, but it's Make America Healthy Again. And so he has been talking about a lot of that, the traveling RFK Jr. show where he's going to market after market in the key states, in the battleground states, as well as Tulsi Gabbard. And the two of them have just been fantastic. And I think they are flying, as far as the national media coverage goes, they are flying very much under the radar. You're not going to see stories about them on NBC Nightly News that RFK Jr. was out in, let's say somewhere in Wisconsin on Wednesday night, if he would happen to be. But you're not going to get coverage on the network news about that. But he's out there, he's getting local coverage, and that's a secret weapon that we've got. And not so secret, we're talking about it here, but it doesn't raise to the level of the national news media consciousness on a daily basis. But it does get into local media markets, which is something that we pay great attention to here. Later today, I'm going to do a couple of interviews with local TV stations out and around the country, and that's a way you attack it. You mentioned going after young males and talking about reaching them through podcasts and things. President Trump does that with great enthusiasm. I think he really actually enjoys it. I mean, if you watch,
he looks. I think those are some of my favorite interviews. I know the guy for 10 years. I love why he is so much more engaging and brings up. It doesn't sound like a speech, and maybe I've just heard too many of them, but I love listening to these. I hope you guys continue to.
It's totally going to do that. And then by contrast, Harris, Kamala Harris, she knows that she has a problem with young men in voting and not supporting her. And more specifically, surprisingly to some observers, not surprising to us, but surprisingly, she's having a problem attracting the support of young black men. And so she clearly knows that's a problem. So she's off to trying to do podcasts now to try to plug a hole there. And she did this one that is hosted by a couple of former NBA players, and it's very California centric. And they were talking a lot. Of course, she's from California. And they talked a lot about, her being from California, and she was pretending to be a basketball fan. And I could tell from listening to her talk that she had no earthly idea what she was talking about. If they had asked her to name one player, I guarantee you she never would have been able to come up with a single player's name. Yeah, right. Tupac, her favorite living rapper.
Her favorite living rapper.
Right, her favorite living rapper. But they asked her the question that everyone asks her. And so you'd think she'd be ready for this by now, but they asked her again, the times are tough out there. What are you going to do to help people being able to afford groceries and put gas in the car? She's gotten this question everywhere she has gone, and she still can't answer it, Sean. So when she's there trying to reach young black males for doing this specific podcast, and they ask her, what are you going to do to make life affordable? She goes on this long diatribe, this long winding thing about how she grew up. And she almost said, I grew up in the middle class, but she caught herself. You could see it. So they told her to stop saying that. But she's then winding, I grew up above this woman who owned a small business, and it was blah, blah, blah. And she talked about different neighborhoods. That doesn't answer the question. The question was, how are you going to make life affordable?
But
I don't care where you grew up.
As a comms, wait. So you're the perfect person to ask this, because as a comms guy, right? I keep saying the same thing. I don't get it. The question's going to happen, right? It's like going to an interview. Why do you want this job? What are you going? Right. I mean, there's 4 questions that are coming your way. Do you think that she doesn't want to answer, or she can't? Because as a comms guy, I would say, Madam Vice President, you're going to get asked this question again. The 4 things you should say are, we're going to cut taxes on this. We're going to end up with this regulatory reform. She could have 4 bullet points that get by the question. Okay. Regardless of whether it matters or not, you could have a canned answer. I can't figure out for the life of me whether she doesn't want to answer it because she doesn't believe in her own policies, or she doesn't want to reveal her real answer, which is like, I'm not really good at this, and I'm going to screw it up more. I mean, what is it? Because it's not a hard thing to answer.
It's not, and we know that she can memorize answers because we've seen her do it. That's why she repeats the same things over and over again all the time.
But that's what I don't get. Why not just answer? But if you're her staffer, Tim, and you and I have done this for a living, why not just give her, Madam Vice President, here's 4 things that you could say, A, B, C, D, and then just pivot and you'll get away with it and no problem. She chooses not to do it, and it's got to make me think that she doesn't want us to really know what her real plan is.
Well, that's the obvious thing. If she were to tell the truth, it would be a terrible answer, because the truth is she's going to raise taxes by $5 trillion. She's going to let the Trump tax cuts expire, which means a tax increase on everyone in this country who pays taxes, which is basically most adults, almost all adults. That's the real answer. And the underlying problem, inflation, is something that you could make the argument, the very good, very clear argument, that she is in many ways single-handedly responsible for the inflation, because she cast 2 tie-breaking votes that caused all the trillions of extra spending, which every economist, including Janet Yellen, her own Treasury Secretary, says supercharged inflation. So her real answer is terrible. So her only choice is to talk about her childhood and what street she grew up on or whatever, or to lie. And so those aren't very good choices.
All right. I have one last controversial question to ask you, and then because I know you got a debate to get ready for. You're a baseball guy. The Murtaughs are huge. We lost Pete Rose last night, 83 years old. Should Pete Rose be reinstated so that he can get into the Hall of Fame?
Listen, I don't know. As you know, when you come on these podcasts, when you're doing these shows, and I'm here in my role as spokesman for the Trump campaign,
Okay.
I'm going to punt on that because I don't know what Donald Trump's opinion on Pete Rose is. I will say this about Pete
Smart.
Rose.
Wow.
I will
what?
say this about Pete Rose. I did grow up in a baseball family. My grandfather, Danny Murtaugh, who was the manager of the Pirates, was friendly with Pete Rose. They were contemporaries, and there was a period of time back before most people watching this can recall, maybe some do, when baseball, there were no divisions in the two leagues. There was the American League and there was the National League, and that was it. You were either in first place or you were an also-ran. And the first place teams in each league, American and National, went to the World Series, and that was that. There was no playoffs. And then in 1969, they split the two leagues into two divisions each, East and West. And for some reason, Pittsburgh got put in the National League East, and Cincinnati was moved to the National League West. And that was at the time leading into the Big Red Machine, which was the great Cincinnati Reds teams of the mid 70s, with Johnny Bench and Tony Perez and George Foster and Dave Concepcion and Pete Rose, and just fantastic teams. And my grandfather he famously was quoted in Pittsburgh, "I don't know who it was that decided that Cincinnati was in the West, but I'd like to shake his hand." Because they put the Reds in the other division and the Pirates wouldn't have to meet them until playoff time. So Pete Rose, absolutely one of the greatest players who ever lived, the all-time hit leader. And I'm not going to get into any of the other controversies.
You're such a pro. I mean, look, this is why you're good at what you do. But I honestly, like, I have my opinion, but you're a baseball guy, and the one thing I will say is I'm glad you told that story, because everything that I've heard about Pete Rose from people who played with him or interact with him, regardless of what you think about what he did post game, in terms of the the cheating and the betting and all that kind of stuff, is that everybody said that he was a good guy, like they liked being around him, and that he was nice to them and kind to them. And I think that's good to know. We all have issues, but I think that anyway. So
I think he was a great teammate. I think I saw a clip from him the other day where he'd just never be satisfied. That's the way he played the game. Be aggressive and never be satisfied.
I like that.
And that's how he played. He was fun.
Well, then I'll leave it there. I didn't mean I was joking. I didn't really think it would be that controversial, but you're a pro.
People have strong opinions about the Hall of Fame question. I know that's what you were asking.
All right. Have a great night tonight. We'll check back in with you. All the best. And we'll be live streaming this thing, the debate, and then taking questions. So if you ever want to pop in, you're more than welcome. But have a great night today. Best to JD.
All right. Thank you, Sean.
All right. Thanks. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. As I said, we're going live tonight. Make sure you hit that notification button. Tomorrow, a great analysis, The Road to 270. Friday, Michael Watley. Thursday is always the panel. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you back here tomorrow on The Sean Spicer Show. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.